All right, welcome everyone. Thanks again for stopping by and joining us for this next wonderful watercolor painting. We're going to actually do essentially like a free flowing composition where we're going to pull some different ideas from different subject matter. This is something where you might pick up a few things from your watercolor books. Maybe you have a few. I'm hoping you have my watercolor book. I have over 65 paintings. It's down below. You can check out my video, 2 minutes. 2 minutes time, you can flip through you'll see all the pages of my book. Again, over 65 of my best watercolor paintings are in that book. I'm hoping you're going to take advantage of that, but we're going to do that. We're going to take all different paintings from all different sources, maybe some from online, maybe something from my new book, maybe something from another source you might have on your phone, your computer. You take anything and you just put it all into one composition and you have a fun time. So we did some figures here. So we have some figures here, and this is like a street fair along the street scene. We have umbrellas, we have figures, we have some flower pots, tables, street signs. We have some cool facade, stone facades with some windows, some doors, texture, beautiful colors. We'll cover all of the washes and colors we're going to use from this palette right here. It'll be on camera at all times, so you'll see all the color mixes as we go. We'll explain all the techniques you'll use as you paint this. You're going to have a fun time doing this. It's just one of those things where it's low pressure, no worries. You're just going in, having a fun time, working with the colors, the washes, doing some pencil drawing. You'll have a fun time with it. All right, so we're going to get started in just a second. All right, we just saw the finished painting. It's more like an exercise we're going to do. This is sometimes what I like to do for fun if I'm just going to try to do some practice time and work with some colors maybe, just practice on some drawing. You can always just take little excerpts of different paintings you might have painted. You could look at different, maybe perhaps an online search. You can find different watercolor paintings to look at and maybe print out a few, or do some screen captures on a few pictures that you might find online. Books you might have, watercolor books. Of course, I always mention that I have my book down below, written a couple years ago. I have over 65 of my best paintings that I've ever painted in watercolor in that book, so that's a great resource for you too if you would want to pick up a book where you know you're going to get a lot of good watercolor paintings in book form, and also a diverse subject matter. So in my book I have like flowers, boats, seascapes, beaches, still life. We do a little bit of portrait work, so a little bit of everything in there, landscapes, structures, things like this. So what I'll do is I'm just going to start in one place and kind of just do some drawing. And I have my tape here on my paper, so I'll just go around just so I have like a really good visual of my border of my working area. So I just draw in my rectangle, and I'm using just a retractable pencil. And I have all my art supplies down below too in the comments section, as well as in my book. I go through all the details in my book, in the beginning of the book, of all the art supplies that I use, what type of brushes, paints, palettes, pencils, pens, markers, pretty much everything that I use on a regular basis. And so I'll just start out maybe. I'm just going to start in one spot, having fun here, and just do some contour drawing. I'm going to go up here like this. And I'm going to do so I'm just contour drawing a street sign here. Like that. So that's maybe a street sign. Contour draw something like that. Maybe I'll contour draw an umbrella. Maybe this is like a fair, and maybe there's some umbrellas here, and we have some people set up with some interesting shopping items. And maybe we'll have like a shopkeeper maybe. So they're by their table here. So I'm just going to do some So we have a shopkeeper by the table here. I'll put the table here, like so. And then maybe over here we'll have somebody standing. So we'll do a couple figures in here. And it's kind of fun to do some figure work here. Okay, so we have some figures here. And we'll just give some definition to the figure with some a little bit of shadowing we'll put in the where the arms are for the clothing. And so we'll have two figures here. Maybe we'll have another figure over here. We could do that. So over here. So I'll kind of make a mark. I use a ruler occasionally just to get some marks on my compositions. But again, we're just I'm doing like kind of like a free association type of like putting down just some interesting subject matter onto the paper. So no real rhyme or reason, just some fun stuff that I've seen in pictures. And I have a couple of things just in front of me here, nothing that I'm trying to really copy. I'm just trying to like use some inspiration for myself for some of my figures here. So I'll keep the shoulders and head about the same height for these figures. And then for this figure, I'll just maybe do a female figure here. And some long hair. And then maybe over here we're going to have, maybe in the distance we'll have a bit of some Maybe a building across the way here. Who knows? Maybe this is a street fair, so we have some street subject matter. This might be a building across the way, so we'll just go straight up. We'll make a building like this here. This will be the corner of the building, and then the building might be going up this way. We'll just make our light insignia here, just so we kind of know that when we start painting, our light will be coming this way. So this side of the building will be more brighter, and then we'll have more shadow over here on this side. And the same thing with the figures. We'll use this light spotlight insignia just to give us our ideas of light and shadow. That's all. Does that make sense? Gives you a real advantage, because right away you kind of know when you're going to go in. And even doing a fun exercise like this, where it's really not a painting so much, a finished painting, we're just jotting down some, practicing our drawing and putting in some, an umbrella, some figures, maybe a building, some things like this, just to, have fun, practice up on some drawing, free association. So I'll have the building over here like this, and then maybe up here there's going to be another level here to the building. It's going to go back this way here like that. And then maybe we're going to have a couple windows. We'll have a couple windows up here. You might see the top of the underside of the windows, like that. And this just might be some design to the buildings, some stonework. Maybe over here I will put a doorway. Okay, so I'll put a doorway over here. For this side of the building. And then I can erase a little bit of a line over here. So we'll have a doorway over here. And maybe we'll make a lamp over here. A lantern light. So I think this is pretty good. We have some good, interesting things to just have a fun time of free association again. We're just going to go in and get some of our paints going, but we'll take a quick break. So always remember, when you're painting like this, doing like some free association, you can put down anything on your paper you want. You can draw a small little bit of ocean with some beach. You can draw maybe a couple seagulls on the beach with a little bit of ocean in there. You can draw a small boat or two, maybe a sailboat, and just maybe put a few ideas on the paper, so it doesn't even have to be a cohesive whole like I did here. I did one of our next videos, what we'll do is we'll just do some fun, put a piece of paper down and just do some ideas on the paper and have some fun, with the paint, drawing, practicing some drawing, do some quick little sketches and some, little bit of adding some watercolor paint to it. That can be a lot of fun. That can be a lot of just free association practice time, where there's not so much always the, pressure of, oh, let's paint a painting. So I did a lot of this when I was first starting out in watercolor, just painting from different books that I had, watercolor books, watching, watercolor artists on YouTube. I did a lot of YouTube watching of watercolor artists on YouTube. Again, books. I had DVDs. I was picking up DVDs a little bit at a time when I first started, so that I could, have some, enjoyable DVDs to put in the player, relax, sit back on the couch, just totally veg. If I'm really tired, let's say at the end of the day, I don't want to maybe pick up my paints and draw, but I can watch, a couple videos, a couple DVDs on YouTube, or get a DVD and throw it in the home theater system. All right, so let's come back and do a little bit of painting next, and we're not going to get too, overly busy with this. We're just going to put some watercolor washes on here and have fun. Okay, and we're going to kind of key in on this light insignia. So if we put this on all of our paintings, sometimes it's going to be here. Sometimes we might have sunlight directly over top. We'll put our spotlight insignia up here directly overhead, so the light's shining straight down. Now the sun in the sky is probably over here, shining this way, kind of like middle afternoon. Midday might be up here, so, or if it's a cloudy day, sometimes there isn't any really bright light, so sometimes you're going to be painting something that's going to be looking like a cloudy day where there's not a lot of direct sunlight, so your shadows might be just a little bit different, a lot more subtle. But we'll paint this one with some good bright sunlight. Okay, all right, we'll be right back. All right, so we're coming back. We're going to get some painting going here. Let's see what we have. A little bit of spritzer bottle here, just to lightly get some moisture onto the paints here. I wouldn't put too much water in the paint supplies. And I think I will do one thing. I might take this light insignia, our light spotlight, I might put it here and just kind of make it a general up overhead kind of light, like a sunlight right around midday, lunchtime kind of light. Okay, now I'll have fresh clean water, so I usually use containers like this or my rubberized containers. You can see all my art supplies are down below. Fresh clean water. I change my water bucket a lot when I'm painting. For one single painting, I might change it 3 or 4 times, maybe more, maybe a little less. So now we're just having fun here. We're not really creating a painting so much. We put down some free pencil drawing from different various paintings I was looking at and some clippings and things. So I kind of just have tons of books, and I have old paintings lying around that I look at. So you could just grab anything and kind of just homogenize it into a kind of a fun practice sketch. Now what I'm going to think of next is let's think about a color scheme. I'm thinking let's go with a bluish purple for the main color in the painting, and then we'll just have some of the more vibrant reds and golds and some greens for like accent colors within this. But we're going to kind of keep it mostly, let's say, purples and blues. We'll also go with a gold. Since we have this building, I think we're going to need that gold color. So like, let's say a purplish blue and gold. So I'll get some blue here. Out onto the palette, some French ultramarine blue, some cobalt blue maybe over here. Maybe some purple over here, ultramarine violet. Like that. Okay, so that's a pretty good start to what we're doing here. Some raw sienna. Maybe some cadmium lemon yellow. Yellow ochre maybe, a little bit of yellow ochre. And we'll take some more of that raw sienna over here. We'll take some cadmium red, maybe some cadmium orange. Alright, so you can kind of see I'm just getting some paint on the palette here to start with. And we're just going to have some, fun with the washes, not so much pressure, just, alright, let's say some blue and purple. Maybe we'll start making a shadow over here on the umbrella a little bit. So I add a little bit of a darker bit of wash right there. And then once you get that, once you touch down and put that first bit of wash on there, it creates like a line, and then you can add a little more dark along there. and it won't go anywhere because it's already, the paper is going to hold on to it because the paper is moist, so the paint won't run in a sense. And then maybe a little bit of golden color over here. So we're just going to have some interesting bits of wash here for the umbrella. Maybe a little bit of yellow, golden color under here, like so. And I'll just start working some of these colors. Yellow, kind of a lemony yellow, some gold, raw sienna, some more purple and blue. Maybe we have some more over here, like that. Then sometimes I'll have I always have usually a tissue on hand. I can take my brush, rinse it off, dry off the water, and then just use a damp brush and lift up a little bit. If you have to lift up a bit of paint that you might want to adjust, you can do that by just rinsing off your brush, drying off all the water out of your brush, and then you can kind of lift up on some paint if you need to. That's kind of a fun thing to do. We can do a little splash here and there just to give some texture. So I'll pick up some of the bluish purple, a couple of splashes there. And what I'll do is I'll try to do some of the more darker, So I'm going to kind of paint in what I'm thinking is like the darker washes as I'm working. And I'll pick up warm and cool everywhere. I'll even go in and get some straight paint right there. Rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit of the water. And then maybe if you want to, if you think you need to add a pencil line somewhere that you might have forgot to add something in, not a problem, you can do that. I'll pick up some purple and blue there too. I'll go lighter right here. And I think what I look for here is kind of like different washes all the way through this. It would be real easy just to take like one color, like blue, and then just start painting in these street signs here with just blue. And, so I try to think of it as mixing the colors, warm and cool, so the blues and purples and golds and reds, and we can infuse a little bit of variation in there. And that tends to really work well. Then I might do a little bit of shadowing here. So I'll create some and just I'm mixing it up, blue and gold and some reds, like that. And so far I think we're looking pretty good. Blue and purple here, a little bit of gold. We'll keep that a little dark under there. Like that. And then as we Work our way down here. It's a little bit more lighter for the umbrella pole. And already we're kind of just having a fun time getting in some washes. You know, you can start putting out a little more, again, French ultramarine blue here. And then a little bit of cobalt blue over here, like this. And we have plenty of purple there. Rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water on a paper towel or tissue or apron, whatever you have handy. And then we just continue to add some interesting color. I'm going to probably try to go with some straight blue and purple. Maybe some gold here, but I'm going to go straight into the water supply. Into the paint supply. I wanted to get this here. This is a little dark up here. The shadowing underneath the windows. And then I just add a little damp brush. So I rinse off my brush, dry off the water, and then I just take the paint that's up here and just kind of bring that down a little bit and do a quick bit of wash here. For the windows. And you can have the light be a little mysterious, don't worry about it. You don't have to have everything worked out. Like if you're doing a fun composition like this, you don't have to have all the shadows and light worked out and perfect and all that. That can be really quite challenging. Because many times I've tried to paint paintings where I might use different subject matter and I'm trying to change maybe where the light's coming from when I'm working on a painting, and that's always difficult. So I would always say a really big help is if you are working with a painting or an idea, try to use whatever subject matter you have, whether it's a photograph of a place or something, or if you're working in real life outdoors, maybe painting us, try to keep your light accurate to what you're seeing out and in front of you. And always remember too, the light will change. So if you're outdoors and you're painting for 2 or 3 hours, that light is going to move and change. So you almost have to take into account and then maybe take a picture when you first get to your location, and then that's what you'll maybe you can have your phone next to you and then refer back to your phone for your shadows and things in your light, because if you are at a location for 2 or 3 hours, the sun's going to move across the sky and it's going to change the shadow patterns on all of your subject matter. So that's something if you're working outdoors, I guess. I'm kind of just throwing in some theory here, I guess, a little bit, or some just additional information, but in any case, that's usually a good rule, is to try to stick with what you're seeing. And if you're working from a photograph, it's stagnant, it's not changing, so you'll always have good luck if you're working from a photograph as far as your shadows and light patterns. But it could get difficult if you're trying to work outdoors and not take into account that the light is going to change over a couple hours or so. All right, so let's keep working here. We're going to have some fun. Let's start working on the figures. Why not? All right, so I'm going to use some raw sienna here and some burnt umber maybe to get a little bit of a darker dark there, maybe a touch of French ultramarine blue to add to that raw sienna, to make that raw sienna a little darker. And we'll just have a little shadow there on the hair, maybe a little bit there. A couple of shadow areas on the hair, and then we can go in and do the lighter washes. Okay, so we have some hair here. Like that. And then we could go with some kind of warm colors. Maybe we'll do some stripes. Why not do a striped shirt here? A striped top for this female figure, and we're going to just kind of do some different maybe colors here. We'll use some of that that really kind of, that would be, what red do I have there? That's I'm trying to, that's like a rose red. And then we have the shirt over here, a little bit of a darker, a little bit of blue in there just for some shadowing, like that. And you can take a little bit of a brush stroke here just to soften that up a little bit for some shadowing, and then continue on with the lines like that in gold. So we're just changing up the pattern, you know, some gold, some red stripes, just like this. That's a nice top there, and then we have the a little more shadowing maybe there. Then maybe we have some more blue and purple here. Then we have some blue there. And there's some more stripes over here on the shirt. And then maybe we'll have a little bit of burnt sienna for some flesh tone here, just so we have a bit of an elbow here. And the same here, a bit of an elbow there. And then maybe we have another figure over here. And this woman has maybe a bouquet of flowers here in her arms, like that. So I'll take the brush here, get a little bit of that paint there, and tap on some flower type shapes with some splashes. If you find the splashing's a little difficult, no problem. You can always get another brush like this and see if you can kind of, see, that works pretty good. Sometimes if you're tapping it like this, and sometimes tapping on something like solid, like a brush, that really can do a good thing, like that, see? And then we'll do some more, like that, maybe some, little bit of green there. So I'll use a little bit of the Viridian, like that. Okay, so she has that bouquet, and then we're going to have another woman across the way here, and then we'll get some more burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, some darker hair here maybe, like that. Okay. And then you have to be careful when you put washes simultaneously next to each other. You can see it's kind of starting to work against me. I wanted to keep the face without having that hair bleed into the face area, so no problem. You just take a tissue, lift up like that if you have that problem. So the best thing to do is to put the hair in first for this figure here. Put the hair in first, or let the flesh dry. So if you want to paint in some flesh tone for the face on this figure here, you would let that dry 100%, and then put in your hair after that, or put your hair first and then the flesh tones next. That's all, because you will get that Watercolor, pretty much if you've been working with watercolor a long time, well, you know this. It's kind of like you're already like used to it, where when you put down washes next to each other, they tend to mingle, and then the paints act aggressively and start to mingle and mix. So that's all. You're aware. If you're if you're here for the first time, welcome. It's great to have you. If you're watching along here and thinking you're going to grab some brushes and paints and paper and just do some work along with us, in the coming weeks and months, feel free to do it. It's a lot of fun. Watercolor is really fun. It takes quite a bit of time to learn, but you just go a little bit at a time, and you'll just find that every time you pick up your brushes and paints and join along with us, you'll learn something new, and you'll make progress. You're always going to be making progress as you go. All right, so we have our figures there. And they came out quite good, I think. I'm happy with those. And then more shadow here for these flower bouquets here. And then maybe a little bit of a golden flower pot there. Maybe there's a red-orange flower pot over here, like that. And then maybe again some green, a little bit of that viridian green. Again, you can use different techniques to get some splashes, so I'll use a little bit of that. Okay. A little bit of yellow. Maybe a couple red flowers. Same thing here. Like that. Maybe a little shadowing on the table here, up top. And then I'll just fade this shadow by rinsing off my brush, drying off the water, and just softly fade that shadow maybe on the very top portion of the table where there might be a cloth or a top to that table. So that's all. All right, we are having a good time here. We've been painting quite a while, so let's take a quick break. It's always good, again, to take some breaks, have fun. We just worked a concentrated area right here with our two figures at a table. This is like a fair along a street scene here. We kind of made it that way, but we just basically took all kinds of different excerpts from different books. I have a couple books in front of me here. I have a couple old paintings I had. So I just have a bunch of stuff in front of me, and I'm just taking all of it and sort of making like a compilation of ideas. And you want to do that. You'll have a lot of fun if you do that. And it takes the pressure off. Again, we're just doing a composition, having fun. And we'll be right back. We'll just take a quick break, and then we'll start working on these two figures here. All right, so we're going to continue on here. You can always make some adjustments too. Don't feel like you don't have the ability to make adjustments. You can take some darker, more high intensity color and add that in. Once you're completed with an area, you can go back in and add some more higher intensity color or darker tonal values. Maybe I'll put some darker tonal values here on the hair, as well as here, maybe a little bit there, just to give it a touch more of that darker tonal value on the bottom of the hair there. And we can always pick up some straight paint right from the paint supply, and that's where you can get some good beautiful high intensity color here and there. So you kind of modulate between high intensity and more low-key, low intensity colors with some grays and things. And I think that looks good. You can take a little bit of shadowing if you want. For this figure over here, that's facing us, we can maybe just put a couple little small shadow marks for the eyes. So you can put a couple, start out with a tiny bit of paint with a very sharp point. You can see this travel brush. This is the Schmincke number 5 travel brush that comes with this paint set. If you buy this Schmincke paint set, which is down below, just kind of let you know, it's an Amazon link down below. You get a beautiful brush like this, synthetic brush, which is perfect if you're just starting out, or if you're just, maybe coming back to some painting, or you've been doing other kind of artwork over the years or whatever. But this is really good, and you put a little tiny dot of paint there with the very fine brush, then you rinse off the brush, dry off the water, and then you can kind of just put a little bit of some shadowing for the eyes, like that. And then maybe a little more of a touch for the shadow for the bottom of the nose, like that. And then maybe just a little bit of red for the lips and the mouth area, like that. And then if you look at it and you say, you know what, I don't think it looks so good, no problem, you just blend those colors in. And just leave it more loose like that. No worries, you don't need to have the details of the face if you don't want to. Or you could always come back once it dries 100% and maybe just put sunglasses on that area of figure there, the face of this figure. So we'll try that. We'll put some sunglasses on there. And we'll move over here to these figures. Let's do some burnt umber and blue. We'll make some dark hair here. And I'm trying to think, yeah, that would be good. Some dark hair here. Okay, and then as we get higher up, closer to the top, we'll go with a damp brush. Dry off the water, rinse off the brush, dry off the water, and just kind of give yourself that nice bit of shadowing there. You can create shadow by just keeping it darker down lower, and then make the paint thinner and lighter as you go up toward the top of the head. And then you can take some flesh tone colors here, some of the reds, very subtly, and just maybe put some flesh tone there. That explains the face and the back of the head really nicely. And then maybe some golden colors here for the jacket, like that. So we get on put a little bit of green in there too. Some purple, of course, and blue. Purple and blue is our main color, really. The blue and purple is going to kind of be our main color, like our predominant color in this painting. And then all the other colors we can kind of mix in there, but I think that's kind of good to have a predominant bit of color. So I'll put some shadowing there. And then maybe for the pants, we'll go with a brown and blue here, like that. And of course the pants will be dark, kind of in shadow, like so. And then I'll leave those be for right now. We'll put in some flesh tones for the hands maybe. He's carrying some bags here. Maybe he's walking and he's did some shopping. So he has shopping completed, and he's maybe there's a little bit of a darker shadow down here, like this. And then we can lighten this up over here maybe. With our tissue, we can blot up a little bit there. Maybe some shadow on the sleeves a little bit. And what else are we going to do now? Let's come right over here to this figure. We're going to do maybe a white t-shirt so we won't have too much to really do here. We'll just add a little bit of shadowing there with some purple and blue, and I'll just thin it out. Maybe add a little bit of a darker purple and blue to the side over here. So again, you can kind of make little bits of dark and light within your shadows. And then maybe a brown and blue kind of a mix for the pants here. And then maybe some flesh tone. Burnt sienna is always a good flesh tone if you just want a quick flesh tone, really quick. And maybe some flesh tone for the face. Again, you can't go wrong with some burnt sienna quickly. Add a little bit of cadmium red to it. And that's usually pretty good. Make a nose here, a little bit of a red nose, just to kind of highlight the nose a bit. And then some brown and blue for kind of a brownish hair. And voila, look at that. We have a nice bit of hair color there. Again, if that darker hair color starts to bleed into the face area, just lift up with a tissue carefully. You know, you fold up a little square or point on your tissue or paper towel and just go in and press it gently, just really lightly. See, now I have no problem with that, right? Does that make sense? You know, we don't want to let that dark hair and that wash ruin the facial wash that we were doing there. So what you do is no problem. We just remember to either do the hair first and then add in the complexion, or add the complexion color first and then add the hair in. But you kind of have to let one or the other dry. That's all I meant to say. And then you can work from there. So the remedy to that problem, if you forget the step of letting either the hair dry first or letting the flesh tone dry first, the remedy to that is you quickly grab your tissue or paper towel, fold up a little square, a little point on it, and then just gently press down and lift up. And then you can let the hair dry for 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever it takes, and then go back in and add your flesh tone. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go back in and add our flesh tone once this hair dries, but that's going to take a little while, so let's let that be as it is. And we want to add a little bit of purplish blue mix with a little bit of burnt umber. We'll just get a little bit of a shadow under here by the back of the arm, by the sleeve of the shirt, like that. And then maybe we can just add some purple and blue and get some shadowing on the boxes here that are on the top of the table. Add some gold in there, kind of mix up the colors a little, maybe a little bit of red, kind of get a interesting color vibration. And you know, this is all good here. We're having a fun time getting our washes complete. And this is a really great brush too, this number 5 travel brush. It's got a great, very fine point on it, and lasts a long time too because it's synthetic, so it really will give you a long go with your painting. It'll, you know, you could probably have this brush for a couple years or more, maybe numerous years, and it's gonna, so maybe the light is catching the top of the table here and it's more shadow down below, so we just do a little bit of a shadow there. You can also lift up sometimes with a tissue just to make some variation. Again, I'm going to add some darker darks there. Then I'll go in and grab some reds. Okay. We're looking good. We've made a lot of progress so far. You know, you can start adding in some darker darks right now if you want. I think the next thing I'll do is I wanted to add some darks for the door and the window over here. What I'll do is I might use the little bit of a larger brush. I'll go back to my Charles Reed. This is, I think, a number 8, a number 6 or a number 8 travel brush. And what I'll do is I'll pick up some more of that. We'll put some more blue in here, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt umber to get a nice dark, some purple we already have here. We mixed out plenty of purple. And then we'll just kind of get the dark here, where this doorway is. And what this will do, it will make a nice, and then some orange and red and yellow, gold, into that purplish blue here. And then we sort of fade it down carefully. And you see I swung my brush around and I'm resting my pinky on the paper so that I can have my brush pointed downwards. Incidentally, in my book, I do cover all these techniques where you can swing your brush around and get your brush in really good, under good control when you're painting. That's a real big help if you're trying to paint watercolor. If you can really get that bit of technique of your brush work working for you, you really will have a lot easier time painting. When I started working on my brush techniques, it became a lot easier to paint. I can guarantee you that. I definitely will notice that. I can say that. That's why I put that in my book, so that there's all the exercises you can work on, and it'll improve your brushwork tremendously. Alright, so now I'm going to leave light at the bottom of that door. I wanted to make that door dark at the top, mostly. I don't want to go with it incredibly dark, but right there. And that one bit of really sharp, dark tonal value there can just be a really good, like, eye catcher that brings you right into this part of the painting first, where you see these really awesome figures here and the flower pots, and we're going to work on this light next too, or soon. And then, and this is more of a subdued part over here. So you can, as you're just doing a fun exercise like this, you can kind of just start making up things as you go, and start asking yourself, oh, what do I want to do next? How do I want to maybe add some interest into this paint, this little just small exercise we're doing? And that's how you just work it out. And I just thought to myself, yeah, that's a perfect spot to put a really good, large, dark area there. That's really going to be like an attention grabber when you go to look at this painting. And that's all it is, just an idea, hopefully. Theoretically, that's how we can get some more interest in our paintings. All right, and this is another dark area here. We can take some purple and blue, and do some nice darks there, right along this, along the bottom there. That adds a nice little bit of interest there. And then maybe up here, just a little bit of goldish color here, like that. A couple of splashes for the stone on this building. You can take splashes and then tap on them, finger tap on them, like that. You can also blot them up if you think you did too many, quickly with a tissue. But this is, again, let's have some fun. Let's keep going. This is really a good time we're having here, right? I mean, this is like no pressure. We're just working on some techniques, some color mixes, some figure work, doing some kind of game planning as we're going here, just pretending that we're trying to add some interesting excitement to the painting. So we're in great shape. I think we're going to add a bit of shadow on this side, and the sunlight is more, I think, over here. So what we can do is, what I'll do is I'll take a quick break, we'll come back, and I'll just go over a few more things that I think are going to be important just to finish out this composition we're having here. Fun composition, just working on some figures, basic shapes, an umbrella, a street sign, some windows, a facade with some stone and some beautiful city kind of street scene style look to this. I hope you're having fun. Let's come back because we got more, and if we're lucky, this is going to come out good. All right, so we're pretty much we're working on the last bit of some washes that we're going to do. I just wanted to mention that at this point in time, I'm probably going to clean up the palette a little bit. We've pretty much painted the whole time without really changing out the cleaning the palette a little bit. So I'm just going to take a paper towel with some water on it. The purple over here is okay. We didn't really mix anything in that purple over there on that side, but over here we mixed quite a bit with the purple and blue and brown, so those colors might get a little bit muddier as we go. Over here we did quite a bit of mixing, so we'll just kind of, doesn't have to be everything, but we get a good clean working surface again, just so we have some really good clean working surface to continue on. I'll empty my water. You can see the water bucket, it's kind of murky, that water. You can see how that is. That's why I go back in and get some nice fresh clean water. I use the rubberized water buckets like this, water containers. They're really quiet, so I can tap on them while I'm working here on YouTube, and you won't hear the noise, versus if I was to tap on our plastic. So if you're going to make some videos, you hear it, that's pretty noisy. Whereas if I tap on this to tap off some water off my brush, very quiet, in essence. So just a kind of a thing with making YouTube videos. If you're interested in making YouTube videos eventually, or maybe you're working on it now, or maybe you have your own YouTube channel, I'm not sure. But in any case, I always try to mention a few things like that, just in case someone is thinking of making some videos or starting their own channel for watercolors, and it's fun. We have a great time here, having a lot of fun painting. So I'll put some warm raw sienna here onto my palette, like that. I will also add a little bit of that cadmium lemon yellow over here. That's a real bright sunlight color, so you can actually add some of that cadmium lemon yellow to your washes sometimes on like walls or things like that, or any kind of subject matter really, but it does add a bit of that feeling of warmth and sunlight. So maybe I'll put a little bit there on the umbrella, cadmium lemon yellow, like that. We'll take some of this raw sienna. That's kind of a warm feel. Yellow ochre too is really a nice color for. The raw sienna is a little bit more toward the brown color, and the yellow ochre is a little more toward gold and yellow. So I like the yellow ochre for walls and things like that, like stone walls. And then we're going to have that texture, so you can just drag your brush across here and there like so. Pick up some paint on your brush. You can always dry off a little bit of paint and maybe get that, just dragging the brush across in different directions like this gives you that stone effect, so you can get that kind of nice stone feel. You can add that lemony yellow in a couple spots, and then take some fresh clean water and sort of just blend it in there subtly. I go around the umbrella there. And I wouldn't fill in the whole area. So this side of the, I guess what I'm saying is this side of the wall over here is sort of straight. We're looking at it straight to the wall, like that, flat, straight. And then this portion is kind of on an angle going this way up the street. So this side gets more shadow color. So we're going to do that in a second, but I just wanted to make that note here so we kind of are on the page here as we're going. So I will add that beautiful yellow ochre here and there, but I wouldn't go everywhere. Please don't fill it in like a coloring book. We all had coloring books, most of us. And then over here, God bless the first responders. They're going down the street. So I'll add more purple and blue to this side over here. This is going to be the shadow side of the painting. So I'll add some water to the palette here. French ultramarine blue, purple, and we will add some raw sienna for some grayish colors. But this is going to be our shadow side of the buildings over here. And again, I mix in the little bit of gold, raw sienna, with that purple and blue, just so we have warm and cool everywhere. And then we can even add a little bit of that bit of a highlight there on the umbrella. And we're just working our way down here. We'll put some more shadow over here. Alright, so we've accomplished a lot in this fun exercise. Composition, free form, free flowing painting. I'll just paint right up to that pencil line so that we have a nice kind of good dark to light transition from the sunny side of that wall to the other shadow side. Maybe a little bit more of the warm and cool, so I'll add a little bit of that gold color there to the shadows. So I hope that does kind of look good as far as the shadow and light. And again, a little more of that sunny lemony yellow. And then we said we would add a little bit of flesh tones here. I'll go back to a smaller brush, to our number 5 travel brush here. A little bit of water in there. We were going to add a little flesh tone, maybe to the hands here, so just to we said we would add a little flesh tone here. So I just add a little bit of paint, then I rinse off my brush, dry off the water, and then just really dry off all the water and paint off the brush, and then just take what little bit of paint I did put on there, because it's such a small area that we're working with there. And then you can just take your brush and kind of slowly work it around there, and then you could take a little more of some straight burnt sienna, and if you want to just add a little bit of a kind of a darker part to the nose there, and then even add a little bit of blue, French ultramarine blue, with that burnt sienna. Make a little bit of a darker tone there, and you could add a little bit underneath the eye, like that, just to have a little shadowing there. If it doesn't look great, you can just blot it up a little bit, and that's fine. And then over here we said we would put some sunglasses, so we're going to take some blue and some burnt sienna and blue, make kind of like a dark, maybe even some brown, some burnt umber, and some blue, French ultramarine blue. Then I dry off the paint. I want just a tiny bit of paint left on my brush so that I have barely any paint. And then I'll just make some sunglasses here. Like that. And that's it. I wouldn't do more than that. Then I would take that same dark, rinse off my brush again, dry off the paint and water off the brush so that my brush is basically dry, maybe damp, just damp. Take this dark that we use for the sunglasses, and then just basically let's put our lamp in here, our beautiful street lamp here. It's like a lantern style, and I'll put like this across on the bottom, and then we have another little bit underneath, ornamentation on our lamp. Maybe we blot up a little bit on the top. Maybe we take our damp brush and then just maybe take a little bit of it and just soften it up a little bit, like that. You can always soften things up and blur out a couple lines. Sometimes things look too rigid and like it's just kind of good sometimes to soften up some lines and whatever. All right, now let's do one more thing. Let's take some purple and add that to this here, and some yellow raw sienna. So we're going to have some raw sienna, some French ultramarine blue, and maybe some raw umber even. We want to kind of make a grayish purple, and we're just going to make a actually, you know what, in this case here, since this is the shadow side of the wall, you're not really going to have too much of a shadow where that light fixture is, I don't think. I mean, we could put one there and see how that looks. That might be okay to add a little shadow to the light fixture like that, very lightly. But then I just think, let's look around, see if we can. I think we could put some shadowing in the windows here, some darker washes in the windows. Darker towards the top. A little bit of a dark there. And I think we have a finished, completed painting, basically a composition. We had fun. We did all the interesting things we wanted to in the beginning. We took a whole bunch of different subject matter. You can find things in magazines, books, watercolor books. You can find some stuff online, print out a few things, come up with just a grouping of ideas and then maybe put them all out in front of you and then just pencil draw a few of them in and try to, like, you know, put them in so that they scale correctly. Like, you wouldn't want to draw, you know, something, you know, like a giant umbrella across the whole scene and then you can't see all the other little interesting details. We want to kind of keep everything so that you have a little bit of smattering of everything in this composition that we can practice on. And I think we did a good job with putting everything in. And then we can just peel off our tape here, kind of see how it looks with a bit of a border around it, which is kind of nice. Okay. Again, the most thing is have fun with it. Enjoy watercolors. We could just sign our painting over here anywhere. We could Chris Petri 2025 YouTube video. And that's it. Okay, we had a great time. Thanks so much for joining along. We'll see you on the next video. And always remember, please, you know, if you want, subscribe. Easy enough. When you hit subscribe down below on the right-hand side, all that does is just let you know the next time we're making a video when you open up YouTube. Nothing else. Just YouTube's way of, like, putting you in contact and having you find the videos that you like the most really easily, so that you don't have to go searching around for our channel here that we, you know, working on in watercolor. So we're here month after month, week after week, month after month, and year after year. Again, thanks so much for coming by. It's great to have you. Great to work with you all, and we'll see you soon.